Hey guys, what's up? This is Brett. Welcome to this week's episode of Friday on the Turntable. It is a hot day here in Arizona. Today is Friday, August 9th, 2013 AD. As you can see from the title of today's video, I'm going to be discussing the band The Rain Parade and their debut album, Emergency Third Rail Power Trip from 1983. First things first, I want to send a thank you to all you guys who watched last week's video. Me and Jesse, we showed some favorite B-sides. Some people posted some response videos. Travis and Adam and Jesse did another one of those. So if you guys missed that one and want to participate in that thread, have a look down in my channel here to last week's episode. And yeah, for sure. And I also want to send a huge thank out to all my subscribers. I think I'm somewhere well over 600, 650 or something like that. I don't recall the exact number, but thank you guys. Huge thank you to all you guys who regularly watch and comment on my videos here. So 1983, you guys know the drill. 5 albums that also came out in 1983. Metallica's, and I mixed up a few formats here. Metallica's debut album, Kill 'Em All. Excellent, man. I'll never forget Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth, being a bass player and hearing that bass solo. Was just killer, and Seek and Destroy, which still remains one of my favorite Metallica songs. Depeche Mode's third album, this is Construction Time Again, also from 1983. This one had Everything Counts, which was the hit song off of that one. Everything counts, it's a competitive world, yeah. Echo and the Bunnymen, Porcupine. Great album, opens with the Cutter. Back of Love's on this one, Heads Will Roll. Yeah, beautiful artwork on that one. So, Echo and the Bunnymen, Porcupine. Here's another debut album from 1983. This is Stevie Ray Vaughan's first album, Texas Flood. Stevie Ray Vaughan and the Double Trouble. This one had Pride and Joy on it, and the beautiful instrumental Lenny, which closed the album. So, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Gone Too Soon. Another debut album, 1983. This is funny because, you know, if you think about bands that started off one way and then they kind of transitioned their career and it took a drastic turn, this is a great example. This is Ministry with Sympathy. This was kind of their synth pop beginnings, and then they took just a immediate turn there. And as you know, if you're familiar with Ministry of, you know, post 86 Ministry, they took a drastic turn. So it's interesting to hear this Al Jorgensen with the British accent, synth pop music. Had some great tracks on here. Effigy, Revenge, I Wanted to Love Her. Interestingly produced by Vince Eli, who was in Psychedelic Furs. So yeah, so that's it. There's 5 things from 1983. So The Rain Parade. This is such a cool album, and I'm really excited to talk about this one today. The Rain Parade is probably not a real popular name that probably a lot of you guys are used to, or maybe are not really familiar with. Other records are not very common. They were an LA band, part of what's known as the Paisley Underground, which was a group of LA bands in the early to kind of the 80s, mid 80s, I guess we can say, that were really influenced by a lot of the stuff from the late 60s, stuff like the Byrds, the Doors. I wrote a little list here so I wouldn't forget. Big Star for sure, Graham Parsons, early Bee Gees, Beach Boys. I mean, there's a lot of influences, some psychedelic rock, and in some of the bands that were part of that, one of the probably the best known band that was part of that Paisley Underground scene was the Bangles. And in fact, the 2 brothers from Rain Parade, Stephen and David Roback, I think they were neighbors of Susanna Hoffs, the singer, one of the singers of the Bangles, and they were actually in a band together in the early 80s. So just a little interesting tidbit there. But some of the other bands, the 3 O'Clock was one of them, Dream Syndicate, which are, you know, fairly well known, the Long Riders, Green on Red, that's just a few of them. So if you're interested in this and you like this kind of music, I think it's good to explore all those other bands. So the Rain Parade started off as a 5-piece band, like I said, the Roback brothers, and after this album was made, actually, David left the band and he went on to, he did a this album, it's kind of comparable to, if you're familiar with the band, This Mortal Coil, which was Ivo Watts Rutzel from 4AD, kind of put together people from various bands and they recorded cover songs or of songs that he liked and they recorded versions of it. Well, David Roback did that, and he put out an album called Rainy Day where he took other musicians from the Paisley Underground scene and he had them record cover versions, and it's a really interesting album. It has Susanna Hoffs on it, it has some other people from all the various other bands. Really interesting. I don't have that on vinyl. It's pretty hard to find. And then he went on to form a band called Clay Allison, which then segued into a band called, there's a point to all this, into a band called Opal. Now Opal, he brought in Kendra Smith, who was the bass player of Dream Syndicate, and they performed, they recorded an album, Happy Nightmare Baby it was called, and then Kendra Smith left the band and she recommended someone else to replace her, someone named Hope Sandoval. Opal turned into Mazzy Star, and as if familiar with Mazzy Star, you know, great band. So they were also, you know, the lineage traces all back to here to the Rain Parade. So let's talk about this album here. You know, there's not a bad song on it. It's a great album. I highly recommend seeking this one out. It was engineered by Ethan James, and I love looking at credits on albums because there's so many tie-ins to various things. But Ethan James engineered it. Ethan James did a lot of LA bands recorded. In particular, the one that always comes to mind for me is Psycom, the Perry Farrell's first band, which was recorded at Radio Tokyo, his studio, Ethan James' studio. Sounds brilliant, and when the very first time I heard this, it's just the bass tones and everything reminded me of Psycom and just how beautiful and present everything is. And it has the sound of that time period, but it's not dated in any means. It has a great production value to it. And Ethan James also did the Minutemen and a ton of other bands. He went on to, he passed away in recent years, but he was also fairly well known as probably one of the rock stars, if you can say that, for the hurdy-gurdy instrument. So just a little interesting tidbit there. And then as you look in the credits, Kendra Smith also makes an appearance on this one, and they became bandmates later in Opal, as I said. And Michael Murphy appears on drums on a track, and there's another name because Michael Murphy was in a band, I don't think I can easily access it right now, but he was in a band called Lions and Ghosts later on in the mid to late 80s, and then also he was the drummer in a very short-lived one-album side project with Dave Navarro and Eric Avery from Jane's Addiction called Deconstruction, which was released on American Recordings, which was a really cool one-off release. But Michael Murphy played drums on that, so he was on this as well. So just some little interesting little points there. So there was one single that came out on this, and it came out before the album, I think before the album signed with the Enigma label, which I'll show you in a second. And that was For What She's Done to Your Mind, which is a great track, and it has some electric 12-string guitar, you know, that Rickenbacker sound that just takes you right back to the Byrds. It's just a really great melody on that song. So there was only the one single. Favorite tracks, now let's talk about that. Talking in My Sleep, This Can't Be Today, Carolyn's song. Now, we were talking earlier about This Mortal Coil. There was 3 of This Mortal Coil albums. The final one was called Blood, which I think came out in '91. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong. But that song, Carolyn's song, was actually recorded by This Mortal Coil on that final This Mortal Coil album. Great version of it, by the way, too. Some other ones, the song Kaleidoscope, which ends the album, is just a great closing track. And man, that just is so reminiscent of Alex Chilton and Big Star that when that song comes on, I'm like, I have to look at the credits and think, is Alex Chilton singing that one? Because it is so right in line with Big Star. And then also the track, Carolyn's song, by the way, which is incredible. I highly recommend you guys checking that one out. That would fit so perfectly right in with like Kangaroo or Holocaust off of Big Star's third album, as well as Look at Mary, which is on the second side there as well. All those tracks. It has such a harkens really with the influence of Big Star. But but it is a great piece of music here from 1983. I definitely recommend you seeking it out. The band, after David left, they went on to record as a 4-piece. They did an EP, and then I think they did 1 or 2 releases after that. And various people went on to different bands. I think one guy went on to Neil Young or Crazy Horse, but they recently reunited, and they tour around. I don't know, sporadically. I haven't checked into that very much, but they're still active as a live unit, so I understand. But if you're gonna pick one up, this is the way you want to go. I did look and check it out. I think it was on Amazon, and it is available on CD as well, which has the EP that followed it. And I think some of the songs on the EP were actually co-written by David Roback. So yeah. So anyways, I think that's all I wanted to say. Hopefully that all wasn't said with rapid delivery where you guys didn't catch it, but I wanted to show you the label as well on this one. So this is on Enigma Records. Hopefully this will show up there. But that was a label based in Torrance, which is a part of Los Angeles area there. So anyways, if you come across Rain Parade, pick it up by all means. If you like the Byrds, if you like the Velvet Underground, if you like Graham Parsons, lots of early Bee Gees, Big Star, this is all that influences kind of seeps onto this. And yeah, this is Emergency Third Rail Power Trip. I always have to look at that because that title always eludes me every time I try to pronounce it. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. That was 1983, The Rain Parade.